Welcome, Soul Tribe. I'm KamalaDevi, and I'm here with Charles Muir. Today feels like a very special, intimate conversation. As you know, I've recently edited Sex Shamans, which is true stories of sexual awakenings, and it has the in-depth, juicy details about various teachers and healers. And today, I feel like I'm going to the source with Charles having been mentioned in numerous journeys. Baba Dez talks about Charles and his initiation into Tantra, as do I and other teachers in the book. And so those of you who don't know, Charles Muir is the founder of Source School Tantra, and for many years now has been healing and awakening and facilitating workshops. And he's also the co-author of this great book, which is on my bookshelf and everybody's bookshelf. What's the title of your book? It's
The Art of Conscious Loving, Tantra, The Art of Conscious Loving.
And at the time, I think when I first bought Tantra, The Art of Conscious Loving, I was, I want to say I was like, just like doughy-eyed, bright into the field. And it was such a revolutionary concept. It's one of those books that was the first of for many of us. So it really started a whole movement. And since so much has changed and evolved in the field, I'd love to take us back to the beginning and ask you a few questions about what it was like, Charles, starting off in Tantra in the West.
I started off as a yogi, teaching meditation and hatha yoga. And my students kept stuffing the question box with class questions about Tantra that I'd have to answer. And one little old lady from South Texas said, "Charles, I don't know why you're scared to talk about this. Who else will teach us if you don't teach us?" And I said, that's right. Not long after, I ran into a female Tantra teacher, and she initiated me. I gave her my standard line when she said she wanted to share her Tantra. I said, "Thank you very much for the offer, but I don't sleep with my students." And she said, "I'm not your student, I'm your teacher. And it's not about sleeping, it's about awakening."
Ooh.
Ooh. So I held out a week before we connected, and she took me on a journey that I knew from deep meditation, but I never experienced anything like that in the bedroom. So I added a course to my curriculum, knowing that what I need to learn, the students usually come as teachers, and I started teaching, and it took over. My students wanted more and more of that.
I bet.
So,
a little context, where were you and what time was this?
Well, I started my hatha yoga career in 1966 when I looked for yoga schools in the yellow pages. There was Dan and Yogurt. No yoga schools in New York City.
Yeah. And now there's yoga studios on every corner, on every street corner. That's amazing.
It seems.
Yeah.
So I made a decision at one point. I was going to move from California to Hawaii. And I made that transition, and I brought along a wonderful student, friend of my lover of several of my friends. And I always saw her as goddess, but she was always with someone, or I was with someone. And that was Caroline Muir, who remains my best friend and continues to teach to this day, living in Panama.
Yeah.
And we got together and we're married 20 years. And it really took off. People could take me seriously because I no longer had 6 girlfriends. I had a committed relationship, whereas I thought I had 6 committed relationships back in those days. So, gosh, I moved to Hawaii in 1984 with Caroline, and I made a commitment I will just teach Tantra. I had founded the world's first New Age music business, Source Music. I had 3 yoga schools in California, and I decided I'm leaving it behind and I'm moving to Hawaii. So that's when Tantra took off. We did vacation seminars in Hawaii on Maui, and people loved it, and people told people. And I was always blessed getting very high quality, conscious individuals who had come. They'd done all their work, but they didn't do their work on their sexual chakra. Many of them were clear from their heart chakra up, but from the heart chakra down, they were confused, they were blocked. They felt if you were sexual, you couldn't be spiritual. And if you were spiritual, you shouldn't be sexual. So I presented that, yes, you can. And the division between white Tantra people nowadays, the yogis who say sex is bad, and the red Tantra people, the ones who believe that sex is a part of Tantra, in the ancient days, they were one. There was no separation. All chakras were included in awakening. All chakras had modalities for cleaning out the residues of one's past that got in the way of the path. So
I want to go.
Taught some famous people.
Yeah, I want to go back.
Put me out there.
It's beautiful, and I want to back up, because as you talk about, this reclaiming of the ancient lineage, it's, I have this picture, of course, you and Caroline teaching in resort in environment in Maui, and these yogis coming to you, and it was just really revolutionary at that time. It's an awakening of the West to sex being sacred. But there was a knowing in you that I'm interested in. It's like you were connected to this lineage, and it was, you had your direct experience with your own, teacher. But I'm curious to hear more about how that knowing came, in your earliest inklings. Like, how did you even reconcile that before? Because I'm sure, being raised, New Yorker, that there was probably your own shame and sexual guilt. How did you work through that?
Every teacher has to work through that, the guilt and the shame. My yoga teachers, Swami Satchidananda was my primary one. I lived at an ashram with him. Got busted for sleeping with about a dozen of his female disciples. And my heart was broken. So I left the ashram and I joined the army in 1968 and 69, which wasn't a good idea. But that's where my path took me. I was into my Bhagavad Gita. And then I was a yoga teacher. I taught Raja Yoga and Hatha Yoga and Jnana Yoga. My primary teacher was an American, a Russian Jew by the name of Richard Hiddleman, who had the world's first yoga television program way back in '56 and syndicated it on 80 stations in America.
That's radical.
And he did it as an infomercial. He gave the program away for 2 minutes of commercial time. Wow. Where he sold his books and his yoga record albums and like that. And he was a married yogi. When I moved to California, I got to spend time with him and ask him questions. And his answers were different than the Swamis. The Swamis were no sex. But then they were all getting busted for having sex. And I vowed I would never do that. I didn't want to be like them.
Yeah.
Hiddleman's chief teacher was Ramana Maharshi, who he lived with in India for a while. And his teaching was always,
who am I?
Who am I? But if you asked him a question, he'd answer with the question and he'd say, now shut up, come in here and find the answer.
Inquiry.
And I learned that's the best place, and that's where I send my students. When I get a question, I usually figure out a good question to ask them. So they have to go into introspection, and I get a feel of where they are. And somehow the right words have always come out. All these 54 years of teaching yoga and 42 years of teaching Tantra. I trust that the teacher is in our hearts. And if you get out of your head, the words will come up from your heart and out your mouth. And all the knowledge that you maybe remember, maybe don't, just comes down perfectly pieced together like a jigsaw puzzle. So the answers are clear and powerful and meaningful to the audience.
It's so beautiful, Charles. This is one of the deep value alignments that I feel with you, and why I'm so proud when I, claim you're my mentor. It's like, here's somebody who truly teaches people to come to their inner guru, as opposed to like, oh, it's Charles the guru, instead of putting you on the pedestal, you give people back their power by asking them questions and trusting in their sovereignty. I've always loved and respected that about your core teachings. Yeah.
Yeah. I've had about 60,000 students over the years, and a couple of hundred trained as certified tantric educators. They're not allowed to call themselves a Charles Muir teacher or a source school teacher. I tell them I don't want followers, I want leaders. And that's what I do in my trainings. I teach people how to lead, how to trust that inner guidance. And some of my students are some of the best teachers around in many, many states. In your lineage, Baba Des, yourself, Triambaka, and goodness knows how many more. Yeah. I'm proud of my students who have become teachers.
Yeah, it's beautiful. And it's exciting for me to share with my network, those who haven't experienced your transmissions. You at this stage, in this moment, it's like you're going through, I believe you're going through a miraculous healing after a deep, healing crisis, and just an opportunity to hear some of your history. It feels like it's cultural history. So let's flash forward then to you and Caroline in Hawaii, and this is where Source Tantra really started. And so you were doing these retreats, and is that where the school, where you started training teachers as well, began?
It was some years after. I remember writing down in my journal book, there's gonna come a time when more teachers of this art form are needed and you must design a training. Little did I know that within months, in our somewhat expanded lifestyle, Caroline would find a lover who she fell in love with. And suddenly I didn't know if my co-teacher all those years would be teaching. It was scary. So I said, I better get a program together. And I invited 10 of my best students, no charge, come to Hawaii, live in our house, and we will teach you. And the only thing I ask is at the end of the 7-day training, that you join in a ritual to help heal my business manager, who had jumped in the ocean and became a quadriplegic.
Wow.
So 6 women made love to him. He had one on each hand and one on each toe and one on the heart and one on his lingam. And he set the Guinness Book of World Records for most simultaneous ejaculations caused by a quadriplegic. They all, one ejaculated, another ejaculated. It was an amazing, I have photographs of it.
Oh, that's gorgeous.
And I like being with really conscious students, and I like sharing what I know, both how to teach and what to teach. I put together what I thought and still believe is a logical sequence of learning the different facets of Tantra in a logical sequence that graduates in difficulty, and teaching the subjects with both a left brain, here's about the subject of touch. But then for the right brain, here's an exercise to help experience what you're looking for. Mm-hmm. So to go to both sides of the brain. And I designed exercises. No one had ever done that before that I know of, for each of the subjects. And I also introduced a subject that I called at the time sacred spot massage. And that was before the G-spot. I learned about that area as a celibate yogi for a while, where men have this area. It's in the perineum and inside. And when I was making love to one of my girlfriends at the time, I had my finger inside and I said, let me just check this area where it is in men. And I massaged it and I observed. And within 3 sessions, I said, I got to add this to a curriculum. And it's not an ancient practice, sacred spot massage. Yoni Nadi, the term I gave it, is a term in men's yoga. Though the yoni was always a part of and pertaining to the goddess and the teachers of sexual mastery, the dakinis, the ones who worked with the kings and the emperors. And I felt that I was having come through me a dakini, a Tara, that I called the pink Tara because that was my vision of her. When I was channeling, there she was. I have a picture. I had an artist do a rendition of the pink Tara. It's over my fireplace, if I still have a fireplace, because I've evacuated my home. I don't know if the home stands, a lifetime of art, everything, all my lesson plans. Yeah. So bring them up to date, if I could just.
Can you pause that? Can you
I'll pause it and.
Great, because I'm really touched by your, it's paying homage to and mentioning like, hey, you had guides that led you on the path, and the pink Tara that came through as you were channeling is an example of how in doing this work there is there's an otherworldly guidance, and then you integrated that with the left mind curriculum, and it's really notable because your teachings and your introduction for most people has been accessible. People can actually access Tantra, whereas a lot of times it's really esoteric and they get lost. And so you were the bridge between these otherworldly channels that came through and guided you, and then making it really practical for the common lover.
I never told anybody about Taras or guides. I believe that my path was to bring, going back to the yoga days, the 60s, to bring the hippie consciousness people and mix them with the business people. Because my school in New York City, the top floor of a hotel on 43rd Street, were mostly business people. And Broadway stars and people of substance.
Mm-hmm.
And if I could present it to them in a way that they could hear it and not, this is hippie stuff, then they would learn.
Yeah.
In the beginning, my students were mostly Tantra students, yoga students, and psychologists. And you might say hippie yoga students and psychologists. That was a class of 20. 18 of them would be in that category. And then classes went to 26 and then to 36. And I said, I can't teach more than 36. It's a deep, and then it was 50 and then 138. Indeed, we had the New York Times reporter do an article, and the class he came to was 138 people. And her editor said, you got to make some fun of this. And the fun they made was apparently we were the most successful and made money. But it was a front page article with our own stylized picture made of dots. And a month later, Yoga Journal did a cover article. So I had from Yoga Journal to the New York Times, just about every major magazine did a write-up. And I always made the reporter come to my class. No, you can't just talk to me, you must take the class.
Yeah, you wanted the integrity of, they needed the transmission. Yeah, I think that's so valuable because you were, especially because what the subject they were writing on was so unknown in the culture at the time. So it's like, if you're going to open that door, it has to be from someone who has a taste of it. And, I really appreciate that the willingness to bring it into the mainstream. I personally have also had teachers, I know you have, who've said, oh, these are the secret mystery school for initiates only, and it's very dangerous to share this with the world. And so to actually be willing and to say, the world needs these teachings. We need better lovers in the world, so we got to get this out here, and to be successful and to be popular is really edgy in the face of a lot of the lineages.
Yeah. I love having a class, a broad scope of people. My biggest class was this last January in Thailand, 187 people from 42 countries.
Wow.
And of those many countries, many of them were teachers of Taoism or Tantra or yoga. So the work went out this past January. And
that was around your birthday, right?
That was my 72nd birthday party.
I had to slip that in there without saying, how old are you? But that's a wonderful way to celebrate 72 years of life, is to get your life's work out there globally.
Yeah, well, the last 2.5 years I've been battling a very aggressive cancer, sarcoma cancer, that they cut out and it healed and then it grew back. They wanted to give me radiation and I said, no, I will visualize and breathe and holistic. But 1.5 years later, it came back and it was bigger, and they cut a wound in my back 7 inches long, 2 inches wide, and it went all the way to my spine. Mm-hmm. It's still healing, that scar. Mm-hmm. That was August 29th. And
well, I'm hoping, Charles.
When it came back, it was starting to wrap around my spine, and they said, you're going to be a quadriplegic pretty soon unless we do radiation on this. So I did radiation, I did chemo, but I had seen something about something called immunotherapy. So I asked these doctors, and they knew little about it, but one of my doctors went to medical school, with this lady who is just starting a new protocol, experimental, on immunotherapy and adding cryotherapy, where they inject tumors with freezing agent. They thaw it, they freeze it again. They do that 3 times. And what immunotherapy does, I want everyone to know about this. Our immune system can't tell the difference between healthy tissue and cancer. Doesn't recognize it, so it doesn't attack cancer. Immunotherapy switches your immune system so it recognizes the difference between cancer and healthy tissue and is biogenetically coded to go after this type of cancer, sarcoma, systemically and kill it. And I had cancer in both lungs. I had cancer running through my ribs, causing tremendous pain in my intercostal muscles. And the cancer is shriveling and dying, and I'm gonna get better. The last I heard from the doctor was, you're gonna be getting immunotherapy every month for 2 years. And that was the first time I heard I was living for 2 years. When I had spoken to another doctor, they said 6 months. Mm-hmm. The way this is going, it's going towards your heart. Your lungs are full of it. Now my lungs are pretty much clear of cancer. It's led to the right doctors.
I'm really delighted, and especially as people who get to watch, we get to share in praying for this miraculous recovery to continue, for your immune system to strengthen. And I can't help but think of your quadriplegic business manager and all the juicy love that you orchestrated for him. And so, it's like a karma paying forward. I see your body getting juicy love from the goddess. And of course, next time, hopefully I get to see you, I can orchestrate something like that to help with your celebrate and accelerate your healing.
Sign me up. I have a paperweight from India, a guy laying on his back with 5 women making love to him. And that was my fantasy that I gave Michael, my business manager. Yeah. 5 women making love, running the energy. So he got to have it before I did. And I'm happy to say there's many years have passed, and I've been blessed with many wonderful experiences.
And I know one of those recent blessings has been, that you're in deep partnership now with Christy, and that's a real nurturing blessing in your life.
Can I bring her right here for a few moments?
I would love that. I'd love to see her.
Here, Christy, I'll move over a little bit.
I can move it a little bit back so we can get more.
As you know, Kamala, I've met her at your Tantra Palooza.
You're responsible for us.
Yeah, I'm so proud.
And after that program, I invited her to come up and be my birthday present, because I got nothing to do on my birthday. It's the first time ever. So she came up to Boulder Creek to be my birthday present, and she pretty much stayed. And we've been together 8 years.
Almost 8 years.
Almost 8 years. And during this cancer recovery, I was weak, and I had never let a woman caretake me. I was always I'm the strong one and I'll make it through. But Christy showed up and touched places in my heart that had never been touched. My mom had a breakdown when I was 3 months old, so I had trust issues with women from the get-go. And Christy and I have lived together and loved together. And I'm happy to say, after not being monogamous since I was 18. Through 20 years of marriage with Caroline, I've been by and large monogamous. I don't use that word.
We don't use that word.
With Christy. And part of that is I'm not as needy. Part of it is I don't have to prove to a woman that I'm autonomous and no one owns me, and the shit that was my past. That's why I always had 5 or 6 women in my life. Plus there was a sense of security having someone was still going to be wanting to love. Though, as you know, in multiple relating, maybe you know, if you have 6 women as lovers, someone is always in their menstrual flow, and you're the reason for feeling abandoned. And
well,
so I got to learn to communicate to the raging goddess and listen.
Yeah. I love that, because we always teach it's like there's sacred monogamy and sacred polyamory, and there's different paths, and at different times in our lives we're in different relationship styles, and the two of you and you in your golden years, you've really settled into this divine partnership. And Christy, I feel that I know how many initiations you've had, before and being with Charles, but there's no initiation like cancer. Like cancer is such a rite of passage, and to be, there with him through that. I'd love to hear if you have a harvest or something that you want to share about the journey you've been on.
Thank you so much for that question. Because there's been a lot of time to reflect on it. And one of the things that I come back to, Charles has spoken some about his past and his experience. Part of his becoming the Tantra teacher that he is has been a lot of experience with women and multiple partnerships and multiple relationships. And so I know that he's been loved romantically, sexually, he's had a lot of desire and passion. And, I just kept coming back to, I get to be the one who loves him like this. I get to be the one who just gets to be with him when he feels like he's not lovable. He feels he's not, desirable or sexy. And I get to just be here and, do my best. It wasn't easy to watch my larger than life husband, hit these places of vulnerability where he felt challenged to even remember himself sometimes. So, I would come in and out of my clarity around that as well. But the thing that anchors me and I can come back to is that I feel that it's a really unique blessing to get to be in partnership with him during this very vulnerable time in his life and show him a different kind of love than all of the beautiful Shakti women that have been in his life over the years. So thanks for asking.
It's the true Tantra, it's not just the juicy, glorious Tantra. It's like when you're in the depths and in the shit and in the, like, really dealing with the mortality and the frailty and the vulnerability that we are, and being able to keep our hearts open and being like, I love you through it all. I just, gorgeous.
And then a week ago, 15 minutes to evacuate our home. Grab what you can and get out. And we've been out now 7 days or thereabouts. Through the grace of Goddess, someone came forward and said, I just moved into a house and I have a bedroom and you can have the other room as an office. And she's a sweet woman. So we're comfortable not knowing if our stuff is gone.
Yeah.
My stuff is 50 years of collecting art, yoga art, tantra art, books that are impossible to replace. Yeah. And just don't be attached. It'll be what it'll be.
It's really an amazing time because it's, there's the evacuation, there's the, the miraculous healing that you're in, as well as the pandemic and the fucking politics of the moment. Like these are just unreal times. and as we're wrapping up, I'd really love to ask you, because you've seen Charles so many different times, and I'm curious how it has been for you to watch, the Tantra field as it grows, and what it's like, especially in the last 2 years that you've really been, tending to your health and watching the field move through its various initiations. What's your impression from your perspective? How is that for you to see it growing the way that it has?
I love, much like yoga has grown from the 60s to a yoga school on two sides of the street, that Tantra has grown, each with their own brand name, each with their own formats, their own processes. Pick your flavor of the month. And there's good stuff that's come out. I love that Des was one of my early Tantra students, him and his girlfriend, Gloria. And he saw Caroline and I, and he thought we were living what's now polyamory, but we weren't. Caroline would find these women needing healing or awakening, bring them home, and I'd say, yes, thank you. And we'd master our healing arts as a result of that. Now, we've gotten to a place, present time with COVID, where it's impossible to have seminars like we used to. I was observing what was happening. I was getting calls from my students of many years saying, we think we're going to get divorced. We're living together 24/7. I used to having him gone 10 hours a day. And Charles, it's not like we forget everything you taught us, but we don't know how to get started. So I undertook a project, creating a video program, a guided class of how to get started, how to shift the energy, open the emotional body, the physical body, the chakras. And I did a 22-minute class, taking the class and making it a movie by adding yantras, special effects showing energy going back and forth between the chakras and the
I'm going to add a link to that video because it's a powerful, essential transmission. It's brief, but I think everybody should have that.
It's, if you put it on 22 minutes later, you feel different.
Yeah.
Most people wait till they feel like having sex. And that can be rare, especially during stressful times when you're watching a lot of news.
Yeah.
So rather than wait till you feel like it, change how you feel.
This teaching, I think I got this from you the first time that we met, like over a decade ago. I remember being like, this is so life-changing. It's such an essential teaching. It's like, okay, wait a minute. I usually expect we've got to turn each other on or get in the mood. It's like, why don't I do the practice and show up generous? Kind of like Christy was saying, like, I get to make love to this person. Like, it might not be, I get to love them in their state. So I love the generosity behind this principle. And now you've made it practical because you've made a video that helps people get into the state to make love.
I've actually, being stuck in a house with nowhere to go for 5 months, I put together a series of these. I actually filmed them the week before that surgery. Wow. With the big hole in the back.
Yeah. After the surgery.
It was 3 days after the surgery.
Oh. God, it was unbelievable.
With a big hump in my back from the bandages. And then 3 days later after the surgery, our beautiful dog got hit and run. Mm-hmm. So Christy was devastated and I was caretaking these students. And I had hired a camera crew to shoot 3 camera angles because this was a level 5 teacher training that I'd never taught before. Mm-hmm. I said, we're in the 2020s. I don't want to keep teaching the Tantra of 1978 to 2018. I want to teach some of the secrets, the ones that I feel are safe for this time in history. And I want to give my students an experience of a guided class. So it was all filmed, these 4, 5, actually 6 classes I did with them, each one more advanced than the other. And I had the footage, and I was just sitting there because I was recovering from cancer. So when COVID came and there was nothing to do, we got that footage out, and I had all the pieces. I had the yantras, I had beautiful artwork. I've got 6 different couples modeling these beautiful classes that just, they range about an hour each. And most importantly, I'm a teacher of white tantra also. White tantra solo practices that involves unifying the inner male and female, the energies, and the selves as well. So I created 2 white tantra video programs with yantras, with energy flow, my most advanced classes ever. And I've only shown them to about a dozen of my teachers, and they're all, we want all of this. How do we get it? So I'm very happy right now. On our website, we've got 4 of these new intimacy meditations for 2, they're called.
Beautiful.
Volume 1, Volume 2. And then there's White Tantra Laya Yoga. There's 2 of those. And I've made the first one free. And I give with that first new film, the film Caroline and I spent $250,000 filming 30 years ago. Mm-hmm. And I'm giving that away free. I finally earned my money back, the $250,000 over 35 years. Yeah. And it's a fabulous video presentation of Tantra. So I'm giving them both away in the hopes that new people will be introduced to Tantra through the old movie, and other students will see, oh, I love being guided in a class of how to open each other up, how to love, how to get stuck energy moving.
Yeah, and I know these days it's like that's a gift price-wise, and it's really comes down to people making the time to do this. And I think it's so valuable, and I want to encourage our, like, whoever tunes in, like, how important it is to prioritize having a practice to do this. And especially now that you can't go sign up for a class or a course where you're being held accountable, to make the time to do the videos, to make it part of your personal practice. Yeah, I just think the money's a small investment. It's mostly an investment of.
There's no money.
Yeah.
There's no money. These are, the one sells for $24.95 when we start selling it, not giving it away. Yeah. And the movie has sold over 50,000 copies over the years at $39.99.
Yeah, that's great.
Never changed the price, and it continues to sell. My
great.
book with Caroline is available in 5 languages still. And everything is digitally downloadable, so we don't even charge you for postage.
Yep. So I'm going to offer links here, and then I'm also going to ask where, if somebody wanted to continue to connect with you, what's your website? You want to?
Charles at sourcetantra.com will go right to me.
Great.
But sourcetantra.com is our website. We have a YouTube channel with 85 educational YouTubes. We've got 27 media reviews. We've got tear-jerking stories of people that have done my work and been transformed or healed by it.
Yeah. I'm one of those people, so yeah. It's been such a pleasure, Charles, and I'm looking forward to more. You know, I'd like to deepen our conversations. I have a fantasy that if I do a volume 2 of this book, that I'll get your story in there as well. It really is an extraordinary story, and I know we've only just scratched the surface.
Yeah, I got some stories. Listen, I gave you our website, but for people to get this free offer, go to the artofconsciousloving.com.
Great.
And that you just click a button and you get the download of those 2 and you're off and running. Put it on. Don't watch it like a movie. The class.
Do the work.
Watch like a movie.
Right. Yeah.
I'm just going to make a slight correction. I believe it's www.artofconsciousloving.com.
Great.
So without the.
Okay, perfect.
Artofconsciousloving.com.
Thank you.
Can I have 5 seconds to introduce my son?
Oh, I would love that.
He's over on this side.
You want to be sandwiched.
Sandwich.
Hi, Orion.
Hey, Kamala. Great to see
He's
you
been
again.
to all my teacher trainings 3 times and is my right-hand man now in the business. Helps me on all the tech stuff. And he taught his first course when I was suffering with the cancer at one point. I could come in and introduce the subject, but he was the male teacher with Leah Alchin. Piper. Leah Alchin Piper, my co-teacher for 20 years.
First beginner's weekend, I taught that class with Kika beforehand. But yeah, it was such an honor.
Thank you for correcting me.
Great.
And I'm one of the people on that list that this work has completely transformed their lives too. So very grateful for what my dad's bringing in the world and happy to help spread it.
Yeah, I want to acknowledge how inspiring it is to me. You know, I'm a mother of a 13-year-old, and when I see you and your father, it's such a reminder that there's family, but then there's soul family, and what it's like to actually be related to soul tribe. And it's like we're here as souls on a mission, and we are sometimes born into the same family to do work at a deeper level.
He was 13 when I started teaching him.
That's
And I want to give people who have children, including yourself, a tip of how I did it. We'd get together and I'd say, boy, I remember when I was your age. There was something called makeout parties. You guys still have makeout parties? And he went, yeah. And I said, well, I want to teach you some tips. And I showed him how to kiss on my
hand.
Yeah, and I gave them tips on how to speak to women, that they're shy and they want you to be interested in them rather than trying to be so interesting. So we continued that for several years, and then when he was 29, Saturn returned, he's been to every class I've done since then.
Wow.
33 now. Taking over the business.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Well, it's been an honor to connect with you, and I look forward to more. And you know, just an invitation to our viewers to check out these sites and to stay in touch. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, KamalaDevi.
Such a pleasure.
Pleasure.